Hello everybody and welcome to Pod of War 2018 Retrocast. Blah, 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 blah. And today we're doing our general chat. It's me, Gizmo, and I'm joined forever by Massive Dash Chris McGarrett.
Hi everyone.
So Chris, it's been 6 years since we've done this podcast.
Oh yeah, it has been a long time. At least we'll get ours out before the ones that we recorded for G-Neighbor ages ago.
Oh really, they're still not out?
Get Game of the Year 2017 chat still.
Well, we're planning to do 2 podcasts a year now. That's the increased rate that we're doing for Pod of War. So, welcome to Pod of War, Retrocast 3. Yeah.
Yes.
So
roughly.
This is
something like that.
Generation 4, which is the best 2D generation.
Yeah, I would say like people talk about comic books. We have like the golden age and stuff like that. I would say this is like the golden age of gaming.
It's the console war age, isn't it? That's the beginning. It's your favourite one because you love yourself a console war.
I do love myself a console.
Particularly between the CDI and the AES, but we'll talk about those in a moment. So because we haven't played in a while, because we haven't podcasted in a while, it's a bit pointless us doing a what have we played since the last time.
Yeah.
So what have we played in March 2018, Chris?
March 2018. Oh, that's only like a week.
Literally.
I played the last episode of Life is Strange Before the Storm Does Farewell.
Didn't you cry?
It's so sad.
I've heard it's sad.
It is really sad. Ending. It's not the best episode, but it's like the saddest episode.
Is that a bonus episode?
Yeah, it's a bonus one.
The one they all do.
Which Ashley Birch and whoever voices Max is back. And Ashley Birch co-wrote it or something like that.
She's big time now, isn't she? After Horizon Zero.
Yeah.
Zero Dawn.
Yes, I played that. I don't know if Nights in the Woods would have been in March or not, but I played that recently on Switch. Really good. It's like sort of like point and click adventure, but without the pointing and clicking. It's
an adventure game.
It is an adventure game. It has like that old Lucas sort of style and sort of thing. And I played Surface Circular. That's also on Switch, which is currently exclusive to the Switch, apart from PC. It's from Mike Biffle.
Oh, okay.
Thomas was loan.
I've met Mike Biffle and I still don't know what game.
Yeah, it came out on PC last year. I think it's currently rated 10 out of 10 on Steam.
Oh, well, that's good.
And yeah, it is really good. We recently had a vote on the G-Neighbor forum, and I wanted to wait till I voted to play that game. It does make my list. That's how good it is. Top 10 Switch games.
Which is currently ongoing on the forum. So check out Balla's doing that.
Yeah.
Check out Balla's posts. They're good.
Yeah.
They're hilarious.
Yeah.
So many people. Monster Hunter forever.
Yeah.
Monster Mash forever.
Yeah. That's what they could call next Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter forever.
Literally need a T-shirt. Completely lost the train of thought then.
Yeah.
So we were talking about it earlier about the Switch's atrocious eShop at the minute. So like games like that. Like I say, I looked at the eShop yesterday. And
you most probably don't even see them games.
No, I just see billiards and pool and spot the difference. I always like spot the difference. Arcade.
Yeah, that is like if you had to pin an issue with the Switch at the moment, it's the eShop store is pretty dreadful, and it's turning a bit into PSN and Steam where anything and everything is coming to the system, and so anything good. There'll be 20 new games this week for the Switch, and one of them will be a good game, but it will totally get lost in those 20 games.
Curation. Yeah, just needs a bit of curation.
Remember when Nintendo used to have zero quality?
Yeah, well, it's like it's okay having crap games on there, but like the Wii U does a better job. The Wii U eShop does a much better job of showing you what's good. Like there is crap on the Wii U shop now because they've taken all the licensing away, but like. When you go onto that storefront, it has the big games, the expansion pack, it has good categories and all that kind of stuff. So they just need to do that with the Switch. As of we found out an hour or so ago, there is going to be a Nintendo Direct tomorrow, so could be one of the things they talk about with their online. Who knows? As for me, I've purely been playing Retro and Football Manager. I've played 63 hours of Football Manager in the last week. That's what happens. I've got on holiday. I've won everything. I'm a god. Anyway. And I've been playing Captain Toad on the Wii U.
Did you have a challenge like managing then?
No, so I was managing in Bulgaria and was like a monster in Bulgaria. I sound like Rooney, who's like 37. I don't know what if I talk about Football Manager, this will be a completely different podcast.
Yeah.
One day we'll do a Football Manager podcast. Oh god. Yeah, I played Captain Toad again because I haven't played it since it came out, and I loved it. I was like, wow, what game! Beat it like cover to cover, like 7 hours I think, 100% of it. Did all the amiibo challenges as well. And then I've just started playing New Super Luigi U. And it is kicking my ass. That game is so hard because the controls are so much worse being Luigi. It's just fuck because you just slide. Like that's the thing is like the jump's cool, and like the shorter levels are fine, and even the level designs are fine, but you just slide, man. It's like every time you try and hit a jump, you're like, I'm gonna slide here, landslide, and you're just like, goddamn. But it's fun. I like Mario. 2D Mario games are my jam. And
never been a big 2D.
I really do enjoy them. So having a really challenging one, and I think the DLC cost me £9. I think to buy that game case now, you're lucky to get it for 30 quid on its own. I know that they've packaged them together, haven't they now? So you can just get the select. As a collector, you want both, yeah. So
it's got the nice green case.
It has. I should have bought it when it came out, but yeah, I'll probably pick that up. Like, see, but buying that new's like 200 quid. But hey, that's what I've been playing.
I just don't think much. Well, I played some Tokyo Mirage Sessions. That's really good.
You should play that game more, because you've done like 2 parts now.
Yeah.
You should do that. I mean, the problem is that's like a 100-part series or something. Isn't it?
Yeah.
There's like 70 hours long to like beat it.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else. I played a bit of Dragon Guard on the PS2. That is, it's the best way to describe that game is great.
It's like it turned into another series, didn't it?
Nier.
Nier, of course it did. Yeah. I remember my friend saying to me he wanted to buy it, and I was like, it looks crap. But
I just heard good things.
And obviously for this chat, I've played some Super Mario Kart, some Super Mario World, some Sonic 2, and a tiny bit of emulated Bonk's Adventure. Just for this. I haven't played any CDI games though, so that's Chris covered. I know Chris owns the best CDI game. How much money did you pay for that game? Before we get to it. It's not that bad actually. It's actually quite a good deal. But anyway, so 4th gen chat.
Yeah.
We're gonna start off talking about the CDI.
Yeah.
So the CDI was a console with air quotes developed by Philips following their sort of failed partnership with Nintendo, and it was really, it's interactive in the name. It's very much an interactive sort of TV experience. Really, it's more for like educational games and stuff like that. But there was 4 notorious games on the CDI, which we're going to talk about now. Chris, you will take that away. Which of those 4 games you own?
I own The Legend of Zelda, Wand of Gamelon. In this game you play as Princess Zelda herself, because both the King of Hyrule and Link have both been captured by Ganon.
And it's horrendous, isn't it?
It's pretty bad. I own this one. I don't own a CDI, but I have actually played an emulated version of this game, and to be honest, it is pretty bad. But then it has got a cool idea that you actually play as Zelda instead. You're gonna go save like Link and obviously your father, the king. That's quite interesting. And they then did that again with Zelda's Adventure,
which was top down,
and had a more of like
it's digitized graphics.
Yeah, because those the other 2, the Zelda Wand of Gamelon is like animated style, like it was like a Russian cartoon.
The thing is, the actual games actually aren't that bad animated. Sorry, it's the cutscenes that are really bad.
Yeah, and the Zelda's Adventure, which is the rare one now, which is top down, which is like this weird digitalized, like Mortal Kombat sort of weird style.
Yeah, it played like the classics.
Yeah, you don't really see people talk about that one much because it didn't have the cutscenes, but that's the expensive one.
It's very rare.
And then you also have the other one's called Link's
Faces of Evil.
As well, which you play as Link. So out of the 3 of games, you actually play as Princess Zelda.
You do, and that was the thing I was most disappointed about with the Breath of the Wild DLC. Like, I was really hoping that you were going to have a story segment as Princess Zelda in her defending, her using her power or whatever. And I thought that'd be really interesting. They didn't do that, so okay, maybe they'll do another one.
And the other.
The 4th game,
which is actually really good.
I think really good is an overstatement. Okay, it's not atrocious.
It's most probably one of the best CDI games.
Oh, that's not a debate. That's true. Yeah.
Which is Hotel Mario.
Hotel Mario, which I have actually played emulated. I remember playing it back in the day.
I played it as well.
After the AVGN video, the famous video. Apart from the cutscenes, I actually think it's a relatively enjoyable game.
Yeah. It plays more like the old Super Mario, like Mario Bros.
Yeah, it's not as offensive as the Zelda games.
No.
The Zelda games are like actually offensive.
Yeah.
Right. So how did the CDI do, Chris?
Not well.
Can you remember? We haven't bothered bringing up any figures because
I expected it didn't even do a million, maybe a couple. If it did, it did
Yeah, I think the CDI was an interesting idea. To have a sort of set-top box, I think it had VCD support maybe.
You had to buy an adapter that went in the back of it.
So it was that early. It's a very early thing.
I have, like I said, I don't own a CDI, and I didn't play Wand of Gamelon on an actual CDI.
But you have owned a CDI.
I have owned
because
a CDI.
you own every console ever made.
No, because when had the Shop 1 came in and had a bunch of games, so I took it home with me, kept it for like a couple of weeks, but I was looking at buying decent games for it, and they were expensive.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what games I had, but I can always remember I watched Star Trek: The Voyage Home on it from a VCD.
Nice.
And I always remember that there was a Madonna music video.
Which we think is Vogue. We were talking about earlier.
I think the cover was like a purpley bluish sort of colour.
So all Madonna fans out there, just tweet at Chris. Just to let him know what Madonna song that was.
Yeah, but it was weird, and it was there was other music video VCDs on there, and they looked like they were most probably came free, or they were really cheap or something, the packaging and stuff. It was these were, but then it seemed weird to give away VCDs.
The thing is,
in magazines.
it was so early. I think it was 91. I think the CDI. So it's so early tech compared to obviously at the time VHS was on the way out. Yeah. So people were trying this new technology long before DVD. So people were trying the VCD over here. Obviously they had laser discs in America were much bigger. And obviously VCD was very popular in Japan. Yeah. But yeah, and CDI just didn't.
VCDs, I think they still actually do them in a couple of Asian countries.
Yeah, I think they are still supported in Japan.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, but it's one of those things. We'll obviously mostly talk from a PAL perspective because obviously we're European. Well, for the next year or so, we won't go into that. It just didn't do anything over here. They didn't have a lot of games and actual games. And to be honest, beyond internet fame, I don't think people would remember the CDI. No. The Nintendo games are memorable because they're horrible.
Still remember some Nintendo
but that's
games.
it. I mean, I can name you another proper game on it. I've not played one myself. It's one of the few consoles I haven't played.
I think I played an educational game, something on there.
Oh, there's loads of stuff like that.
By DK or something. The encyclopedia people and stuff. But yeah, it was a strange. If I ever see one cheap, then I will pick it up.
You'll buy anything cheap.
I will pick it up just so I can play one game along and mystery, stream it, or play a video.
Well, in a perfect segue, the most opposite console on this list is the complete opposite of the CDI, which is the Neo Geo AES/CD. We're going to include the CD because it's essentially the CD is essentially a cheap version of the AES.
Yes.
So we're just going to include that as one console.
Yeah, because some people say
technically fifth.
Some people say it's fifth because it came out that sort of time. Yet places it has the same games as AES.
I just see it as an add-on, really.
And it has no exclusive games. Well, for its compared to the AES, it was just a cheap version of AES.
Yeah. But the Neo Geo AES, the MVS as well, which is the arcade board, is essentially a home console version of the Neo Geo arcade systems.
Yeah.
Just really played arcade games, almost exclusively developed and published by SNK and Neo Geo themselves, right? I don't think there was many. If any third-party games.
I think it was ACK was main games for it as well. But I think that's something to do with SNK.
And it was a very premium product at the time. It did come out over here.
It was something like $1,000.
It was very expensive, and but it was worth it in the way it had.
The whole purpose of it is you can play arcade games at home.
And it actually was supported up until about '99. Wasn't
no
it?
Longer than that. There was official release in 2004.
Really? Jesus. I know it had a long life. I know it had a long shelf life.
Something like King of the Fighters 2002.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay, so it had a long life, had a really good. Then it came with arcade sticks, didn't come with the controllers. The CD came with controllers, which I believe you've owned. Have you owned both? Or have you just
I've only owned the CD.
Obviously, because you're not gold plated. But obviously, it had a lot of the big games. It had King of Fighters. It had Fatal Fury. It had had a really good version of Metal Slug. Like I said, it was just the arcade games. So. Samurai Shodown, I remember.
Yeah, that's the thing. It is mainly fighting games, and there's some Metal Slug. But you did have a platformers. You had Magician Lord on it, which is a more traditional sort of game, not a fighter. But if you did the arcade games,
it had huge cartridges that were massive.
Yeah, for the AES.
They were literally arcade boards, basically. It's one of those. It's a weird console because it actually. Although it didn't set the world on fire, it actually financially was a success, I believe. I don't think they lost money on the console. You can correct me here, but at least in Europe, I believe the sellout ratio was pretty good. They just didn't make many of them. They didn't make a lot of software
it was a real just premium device.
It was very premium. So I've never seen an AES. I have seen AES. I've never played an AES. I have played the CD.
I've seen one.
We'll talk about the CD now, just because Chris sounded like. The CD was just lit, like we said. It's just a repackaged. I think did it have a 2-speed drive or a 1-speed drive?
I can't remember.
I think
it might be different because there's the CDs, which had the Z on the end.
The Z is a 2-speed drive. That's one of that. So it was very. What I mean by 2-speed, which is funny because I think the slowest CDI you can buy now is 80 speed. But it's just how quickly they read the discs.
The load times on the CDs are horrendous.
The Mega CD was also a one CD.
The time it takes to load a Neo Geo CD game, you most probably could finish a Call of Duty.
Yeah, true. But again, that was the time, and this again was like 91, 92.
Yeah.
I think the CD might be 94 actually, but God knows. But yeah, it was a really cool piece of kit. Really nice controller, from what I remember.
Yeah,
had the amazing 8-button stick that the Neo Geo always did. Fantastic controllers, and the pocket color as well. Brilliant sticks. Yeah, it's just literally just a CD version of that. The software was a lot cheaper.
Yeah, that's
because it's on CD.
Yeah, I bought a CD, Neo Geo CD, because there was one in the game shop.
This is going to be like every single time we do this fucking podcast.
There was one in the game shop. I was offered a fairly decent deal on it, so I bought that. I did need to go buy a step-down converter because obviously it was the Japanese. I need to change that power supply. It's Japanese. They are region free. And then I bought on eBay. I think I paid like £10 for King of the Fighters '98, which is on Saturn. It's like 40-50 quid because you have to have the RAM cartridge.
Yeah.
Otherwise it won't work. And it was like 12 quid or 10 or 12 quid on.
So what would you say is the best game for the Neo Geo CD and AES in your opinion? Your favourite game?
That's really hard because I actually played on the actual hardware. I've only played King of the Fighters '98.
Yeah.
That's the only game, and I made a profit on my Neo Geo CD because once I bought the step down converter, I had the game and I could actually show it working and properly, I made it.
eBay tips with Chris Vangelli.
I made a tiny, tiny sum on it once it was like up and back thing, but it's a weird one because. Really, your best game is like sort of always the same game. I'm not 100% sure if it's on it, but most probably if it is, King of the Fighters '99 Ultimate Evolution.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it's on the Neo Geo CD as well. If it is, it's most probably that.
Mine would definitely be of the ones I've played. I've played a CD. I played Samurai Shodown, which I really liked.
Yeah.
And I played one of the King of the Fighters. I don't remember which one. I want to say '97, but I don't remember which one. My favourite one is Metal Slug 2.
Yeah.
Which is, I love the Metal Slug games,
yeah,
and the only issue with the CD version was it had a really, really bad load time. Better than the PS1 version, which was trash, but it wasn't good.
That's the one problem with Neo Geo CD, especially the CD. It was a premium console, but SNK at the time also released their games on PS1 and Saturn, and then obviously later they released them on Dreamcast, PS2, and stuff like that. So it kind of made the system
as well as the pocket and the pocket color. And
yeah,
it
was like they released,
and they were all the same game.
It'd be weird. It'd be like Sony releasing their game on Xbox now. It's like really weird. Like Control Mantra releasing their game at the same time on like a rival system. It's just really weird.
So that's really the Neo Geo. The only other thing I wanted to talk about the Neo Geo is the Neo Geo X, which came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I remember that now.
Don't buy it, it's crap. Really bad emulation. I believe it was licensed by SNK, but it's not actually them. Because obviously I don't think that company exists anymore in the way it used to.
No.
But yeah, they did basically like an emulated version. It was a really nice looking machine.
Yeah.
Looked like the AES, had nice controllers, but ran like dick. But that is.
You did have the handheld part where you could.
You could play it, and it was like a Switch for a Switch, I guess. But it was not good. So don't buy that. If you're gonna buy a Neo Geo, I would recommend pumping up the money and buying an AES
or a CDZ. You need a CDZ.
CDZ, yeah. It's if you're gonna get it, buy the double disc speed. But yeah, I would recommend that right now. So
the only good thing, SNK Fighters.
SNK Fighters are great, but then we can SNK Fighters on everything now, aren't they? So. Right, so the next one is the last of the weird ones, but is one that interests me and I know interests Chris as well.
Yeah.
That would be the TurboGrafx 16, as it was known over here in the United States, and PC Engine, as it's known in Japan. Now
it's the third horse in the race.
Well, that's the thing. In Japan, it's not. In Japan, it's the second horse.
Yeah.
So in Japan, the PC Engine was very, very popular. It came out very early. It was more sort of up against the Master System and the NES, actually, really. It was late in that life, but it was kind of like Dreamcast, I suppose. It was late in that life, but very early in the next. And it was a 16-bit console, but it wasn't actually a 16-bit console. It had 16-bit GPU, I believe, but I believe the data bus was 8-bit. That's way too technical for the type of podcast we do, but it's the PC Engine. Games came with cue cards, which were really cool, and it did really well over there in Japan. It launched in the US and did not do very well. It launched around the same time as the Genesis. which of course we know as the superior Megadrive. And it just the marketing campaign by Sega was just too good. It just completely destroyed the TurboGrafx. They redid the console and it looked disgusting. It made it like huge, but if you actually open one up, it's still a PC Engine, so it's like literally like half the console is empty. And you think, right, okay, but they did this for all the consoles that I don't really understand in the US. And that's because of that, the UK release was very limited. All the information I've been able to find today has been that it didn't actually get an official release. Now, there were consoles released, they came over here, they were boxed, they were PAL, there was not an official...
Yeah, because I've seen them for sale, and there's always been the console, and it's had like an American plug in it, but then they've always had this white box, which said TurboGrafx was always official looking, and you know, that was like bundled, like stuck to the side of it basically, and then now would have like an UK
like an official converter and
power supplying converter.
So the official, from my understanding, for people who want to collect for the TurboGrafx, there is no PAL games. I know that for a fact. There is no PAL games. It just basically plays the Japanese games. The PAL TurboGrafx has a different art and font on the TurboGrafx on the console. It is blue and red instead of orange. So if you ever see one, they are actually worth quite a bit. If you see one cheap, pick them up. But from what the innards, I believe it is they were like test models. So I believe they play the Japanese games. I don't know that for a fact, but as you said, there is a specific power converter you need to buy the PAL version. But anyway, it was really the first console over here and the US that was really embraced by importers. There's a really interesting article in Retro Gamer. Just going to get the issue. Retro Gamer issue 172. Where they talk about the import things. Obviously, me and Chris are both born in 1990, so it's probably a little bit before our time. It was very, very big in the importing in France.
I've watched like IGN's Game Scoop and Damon on that. The host, he talks about TurboGrafx all the time, and he imported games.
Well, Happy Console Gamer, he was a very good YouTuber. If you have any interest in retro gaming, you should very highly recommend Happy Console Gamer. He's really good, but he's got a massive PC Engine collection. And it was an importer's paradise. It was very cheap in Japan because the console is very small, and the games are very small. So from just a pure manufacturing, it was a very cheap console to make, and there was a lot of different versions. So you could get PC Engines relatively cheap in the UK at that time. And I remember there was I can't remember what magazine it was, but there was a magazine that covered it quite massively at the time. The article was called Meme Machines. I can't remember what the magazine was called. It might be CVG actually. It just might be in computer video games. But yeah, it was kind of the beginning of that because it was a very arcade console. It wasn't very reliant on any sort of English tech. Sorry, so there's a couple of RPGs, but other than that, the same with all the import consoles. But yeah, in the US it just didn't do very well at all. Didn't have very many games over there. Only had about 200 games, I think. Might even be less than that, to be honest with you. Whereas in Japan it had like 900, something like that. Yeah. It's like the Saturn, I guess. It's like really popular in Japan. It was the second best selling in Japan, behind the Super Nintendo. In America it was third, in UK it didn't come out, so it was behind like fucking everything. It was behind on the Spectrum. But yeah, it was a really cool thing. It had a 2-button controller. It had turbo built into the controller, which I thought was really cool, hence the name TurboGrafx. But yeah, that's about much rambling. It did relatively good numbers in Japan.
It had a CD version.
Had a CD. It was the first CD add-on, I believe. Very unreliable CD apparently. It's another 1-speed drive. Makes it very popular nowadays. Actually, it's got quite a decent homebrew community. Obviously, nothing in any CD system really before the Saturn didn't really have copy protect, so you could just burn. Like nowadays, obviously, you have the technology. You can just burn games. If you were ever to pick up a CD console that era, you can do that. Like the CDI, I'm pretty sure you can do that as well.
Yeah.
And the Neo Geo CD for sure you can. Street Fighter joke there, Chris, but anyway. But yeah, the TurboGrafx was pretty interesting. In terms of games, it's like Bonk's Adventure is kind of the one everyone talks about. But again, much like the Neo Geo, those games were actually on NES, Super Nintendo, and the Mega Drive, I believe. Bonk might have come on.
Yeah, I got a feeling.
Splathouse was quite a big one. You had Galaga. Galaga 88, I think, was one of the launch titles.
Did it have R-Type?
I think it did have R-Type. Had Darius was on it. A lot of those type of games had like a version of, I think it had a version of Outrun on it, had a version of Fantasy Zone on it from Sega. I might even have had Space Harrier on it. I think it might have had Space Harrier actually. But yeah, it was a very interesting console.
Yeah, and like you said, did it have like a follow-up? Was the follow-up PCFX?
No, they did a half follow-up called the SuperGrafx.
Yeah.
Which only had 7 games, but it played all PC Engine games. which is really confusing to me because TurboGrafx was the the English
name
branding, but then it had graphics in the Japanese only sequel, and then it was then followed up by the PCFX. We haven't even talked about TurboGrafx actually made by NEC, which is a big computing manufacturing company of the time. They made a lot of PCs and workstations in the US and Japan. It wasn't that big over here because obviously we were always being Commodore and Atari and things like that. But they were very big, and it was co-developed by Hudson Soft. Now Hudson Soft were very well known now for Bomberman.
But now we've got Konami.
I don't want to think about that. And they did the Mario Party games on GameCube, which is the one I always remember because I love those games.
Yeah.
But they actually were in on the NECs, but was the first place you could get Bomberman and games like that. It was literally like a Bomberman every year on it, if I remember rightly. I think there was Bomberman 89, 90.
I've got this weird feeling. Didn't that have the 100-player Bomberman on it or something? Didn't they set that up in an arcade or something?
Yeah, because the big design flaw with the PC Engine line was there was only one controller port. So you had to buy a in America it was called the Turbo Tab. I can't remember what it's called in Japan. It was basically you plugged in and it would give you 5.
Yeah.
And obviously Bomberman was 5-player initially because obviously I know Saturn was 10. But yeah, it was a very weird console. It was so compact. It had such an interesting design. I personally really want one. If you can't tell from the way we talked about it,
I wouldn't mind one. But what I'm always told by people, you want the PC Engine Dual because it's region free.
It's most reliable,
and it plays all the CD games. So it's like you got everything. So you can play all the American games, you can play all the Japanese, you can play all the CD games. Reliable, but then it's like the most expensive.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I think the entry level for a PC Engine, because if you were to collect for the PC Engine, right, there's some really good articles out there. But as sort of an overview, the first model PC Engine, the one that we know, the white PC Engine, is only RF.
Yeah.
But you can get those very cheap, and it's very easy to mod them. There's a very big physical modding community for the PC Engine. I don't really know why. I think it's because it started so early. I think it's always been in the modding community, so it's become a very strong modding community. If you're going to collect for PC Engine, I don't recommend the TurboGrafx. I just don't think it's worth the cost of the console and only having US games. I just don't think it's worth it. I would go for a Core Graphics 1 or 2 model. They're exactly the same, they just look different because they have AV out built in. They play PC Engine games. You can put the CD add-ons on the back. Like Chris said, if you want to play the CD games, which to be honest you probably do want to do, then you want to get the CDZ or whatever the fuck it's called, the Duo CD or whatever it was, because that's the most reliable thing. But if you just wanted to collect TurboGrafx, I would go for a Core Graphics. And if you just wanted to try some TurboGrafx games, the Wii U for sure. I'm not sure about the Wii. I think it's just the Wii U has a TurboGrafx.
Oh, the Wii did, but now the shop's closed.
The shows are closed now. Well, for the time being, the Wii U does have a TurboGrafx 16 section. It's not very strong.
This should just come out. It
came out last year. Yeah,
so weird.
To be honest with you, the emulation has vastly improved on the Wii U. Because I remember when they first started doing N64 games, it was terrible. But TurboGrafx has some really good options. It's really worth. If you want to try the TurboGrafx, I would definitely recommend the Wii U route right now, because if you're listening to this podcast, you probably own a Wii U, and you can't just sit there doing nothing. So, but that's the TurboGrafx PC Engine. That's the one that me and Chris want to buy. So look forward to our PC Engine podcast.
Saying that, I would sooner mostly go for Neo Geo CD again.
Well, yeah, I think in the end we'll do a what we want to collect for. I think that'd be interesting. Right, for the next one, this one's gonna take a fucking while. Okay, so this is the one that I don't know what's our favourite. We'll talk about this after. So this is the Megadrive. So, or the Genesis if you're American. I do apologise that you've got the inferior name because Megadrive is way better. Megadrive came out in 1987, 1988.
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah, okay, because I always remember 91 because that's when Sonic came out, but that's not launch title. Might be 88 then, because it was 3 years before. Came out in 88. Very, very popular over here.
Yeah.
Relatively popular in the United States.
Yeah. Super popular in South America.
And Brazil is insane.
Well, Master System's
tech toy. But yeah, the thing is about I always find interesting when I look on YouTube, because if you go on YouTube and you listen to anyone talk about this generation, the previous generation, they always talk about they were close but they never really did it. In Europe, the Mega Drive outsold the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
And the Master System was a very popular console over here. You've got to remember as well, in Europe at that time, Nintendo and Sega were not first-party distributors. So they had other companies used to do all the marketing and all the selling.
Yeah, Virgin used to distribute.
Virgin Mastertronic used to do did the ones for Sega, and they were very popular. It was very good. It was obviously Richard Branson when he was at his best business-wise, and Virgin did a very good job of putting the Mega Drive out there. And over here it was very popular. Growing up, I remember playing. I actually owned a Super Nintendo. I still own a Super Nintendo at the time, and I was the only person I knew that owned one, because all my friends had Mega Drives, because it was just cheaper. It was cheaper to get games for it. All the games were more adult, and that's what they pushed over in the UK. And the games just were so much cheaper. I can't put into words how much cheaper they were. And we used to get all the Japanese games, whereas, as we'll talk about later, with the other console, we didn't. So it's always that weird thing I always find, because in America it's always like kind of equal. In here, until the very last minute, it was very, very Sega focused. Until Sega obviously did what they always do and fucked it up.
Yeah.
As for games, we could probably spend an hour talking about Mega Drive games. We'll just talk some big ones. We'll talk Sonic 2.
Yeah.
I still think the best Sonic game on the Mega Drive.
It is not.
Until we get to the add-ons.
No, it's not.
Did you prefer 3? Do you?
3 plus Knuckles is better.
Which is amazing. At the time, when you could put a cartridge on top of a cartridge.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. That was so good. And obviously, you could put Sonic 2 on top of Knuckles and have Knuckles in those levels as well, which is fantastic. And you can put
Sonic 1 on there, you can unlock the bonus stage.
Yeah, and it's really hard to sort of put into words how important Sonic was at the time, because obviously now he's just a joke. And that makes me sad, it makes you sad, I know, but it's like he's just a joke, but at the time it obviously was nowhere near. The Sonic games were not as good as Mario games. I'll come out and say that right now. I prefer Sonic games, but they were not as good as Mario games at the time. Super Mario World shits all over Sonic 1, 2, 3 and Knuckles. But they were just they felt more adult, because it was so fast, and it was like, just the way that like the bloody sound when you were drowning, and all that stuff, having tails, it was just really cool at the time, which sounds really silly, because that's like, makes me sound like I'm 40, but it was really cool. Having Sonic at that time was really big, and it really did push. Like, Sonic wouldn't be as popular as now if it wasn't for the Mega Drive. Like, he was everywhere. It was like Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous, which meant that you had the platform so you would get other games. Like, I always think, when I think of the Mega Drive, I think of Streets of Rage 2.
Yeah.
I don't really think of Sonic. I was, oh yeah, Sonic was Sonic, because Sonic's been released. The Sonic Mega Drive games have been released on everything afterwards. But you know, you had Streets of Rage 2. You had Golden Axe was great. Those beat 'em ups were fantastic. You had Outrun. You had Michael Jackson Moonwalker, which is a weirdly good game. You had Mortal Kombat, which had the blood. Street Fighter came late.
Plus, if anyone reckons they can beat me with Mortal Kombat 2, yeah,
that's
right.
Chris throwing down Mortal Kombat 2. But like, you had all those games on the Mega Drive, and you know, I've got over there. I've got Rocket Knight Adventures, which is a really amazing game. Really good platformers on the game. Really good arcade system.
Toe Jam and Earl.
Toe Jam and Earl was really good. Space Harrier 2, Super Hang On, Columns, even, like, these really were good games. You know, and it has a library of Phantasy Star 4, which was fucking unreal. Like, generally, like, if it hadn't been for Final Fantasy 6. But then I suppose, actually, this is a point we'll get to later. In Europe, Phantasy Star was the premier turn-based RPG, because we didn't get Final Fantasy to the PlayStation. So you think, you know, Sword of Million as well, which I really like, and stuff like that. So
and obviously other Shining games.
Shining Force games were great. What was the ones before? Shining Force was Saturn, wasn't it?
No, there was lots.
They're all called
they're all Shining something.
Yeah, that's what I think.
And there's some variation.
I can't remember the name.
Like, you have Shining Wisdom, which might be it's like a JRPG, and then Force is like a tactical RPG. They're all part of like the series. And
the weirdest thing, which is really hard to think of now, is the licensed games were fantastic at the time. So you had
Aladdin, Lion King.
You had Aladdin, Lion King. You had Cool Spot Goes to Hollywood, which was a 7-Up game. People forget that it was a 7-Up. It's just 7-Up.
Yeah.
You know, and these games are iconic.
And you had the McDonald's games.
The McDonald's game on the Genesis and the Mega Drive was really good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh Jesus.
That's a couple of them, I think.
But yeah, so you had crap as well. You had Bubsy.
Yeah.
Can't do anything about that.
Then things like Road Rash from EA. Like
Road
EA, that was the thing that made Mega Drive huge, was the sports games, I think.
But they had the really
especially
good,
in the States,
because they had the licensed sports games, and they had like the Dave Lasorda baseball, whatever, Joe Montana football.
Because if you look at really early Mega Drive ads from the States, that were all talking about sports.
Like NBA Jam was great. We had FIFA.
And like the Formula 1 game.
We had FIFA International Soccer at the time, which was, I don't know if it was the first, because I have a feeling it came out on 3DO as well. But it might have been the first. It was Italia World Cup was the one I remember. It was really popular at the time. And also they had a lot of variation with the cartridges as well. So we had the biggest one that I remember was really big, actually, was Micro Machines over here. Because you had the J-Card with the 4-player, or the 8-player if you want to split the controllers. Worms was on the Mega Drive, was really, really popular as well. So it was in sort of the UK mindset, the Mega Drive was very, very just like nostalgic. It really does grow up with you. Then obviously Sega had to ruin it, so they brought out the Mega CD, known as the Sega CD in America. It came out, did about 2 million worldwide. Was very similar to the Turbo CD in that it was a one-speed disc drive. You attached to the console, had its own power supply, which was a really big mistake. She just made its own console, but whatever. And it sort of made, basically it was a Mega Drive that had a bit more power and a bigger memory, but it still ran through the Mega Drive, so it was like the colours were still only like 16-bit colours. The big game on that was obviously Sonic CD. There were some decent versions of Night Trap. There was a lot of FMV games. Yeah, there was some good CD games.
I remember playing Fatal Fury on it.
Fatal Fury, yeah. Final Fight, was Final Fight CD on there?
Yeah.
Which was great. There was like an arcade quality port at the time. That's what a lot of companies did. They just did arcade ports. Like the Mortal Kombat CD game was really good because it had a bigger soundtrack. It had like an orchestrated soundtrack, which was really good. But yeah, the Mega CD is one of those things. It was that sort of early 5th gen, which we'll obviously get into more when we do the 5th gen chat in 2019. But it's a lot of FMV games, a lot of long loading times and stuff. And then they really shat the bed with the 32X. Now, I actually quite like 32X for what it is. It just didn't make any sense. They literally released it in Japan the day after the Saturn came out. So it's like, it was 95, it was pointless, because everyone knew the Saturn was coming. It was a 32-bit console. Again, it needed its own power supply. Again, it needed to be connected to the console. It had some good games. Had Virtua Fighter, which was amazing. Had a really good port of Virtual Racing, which was on the Mega Drive. There was like the SVS cart, which is basically the Super FX chip. But the 32X version was fantastic. It was the first 32-bit console in that regard. Really good version of Star Wars Arcade.
It had a Mortal Kombat on it.
Had a Mortal Kombat, because they always did. I think it had a Earthbound Jim 2 or something.
It had Doom on it.
Doom was really bad on it.
Yeah.
Doom was really bad. I didn't have music or something. I have a feeling that's what it was. It was like really bad on the 32X. And that's really what killed the Mega Drive and killed Sega in general. We'll do a whole thing on that. But yeah, so what's your memories of your Mega Drive growing up?
I had a Mega Drive, not a Super Nintendo. I think I'm not right. So I either got it in January 1993 or I got it in December 1993. I got it for my birthday.
You were 3 years old, so
I'm not sure which one. So it was at the start of the year or the end of the year. I remember having Aladdin on it and Sonic 2. If anyone ever figures out like dates and how
like when they did that bundle, maybe.
Yeah,
they did do a Sonic 2 bundle.
Yeah. Plus the weird thing is, there's a picture of me playing a Mega Drive with mates and I'm playing Wrestle Water, and it's a Mega Drive Mark 1. I can never ever remember owning a Mark 1. I always remember owning a Mark 2.
It might be one of those things where you like. I remember this happening with the Master System for me as well. I never remember having a Master System Mark 1. I always remember the Mark 2. But you might have just broken the Mark 1. Or your dad, you know what I mean? Like your dad got it and it was like crap. And he was like, oh, crap, this is broken. I'm just going to get a Mark 2. He's 3 years old, he won't remember.
I got this weird feeling is when my uncle got his PS1, he gave me his Mark 2. I think the Mark 1 was my uncle's, and for some reason, I don't know why we'd buy a Mark 2, because the Mark 1 had the headphone jack and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know, that's the only thing I can think of. I got handed down his Mark 2 when he got PS1. And that's what I remember. So yeah, I remember all those games, and it was weird because I was the only person in the whole street that had a Mega Drive. So everyone used to come over and used to play Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, Mortal Kombat, your Street Fighters, and all those sort of games. Now looking back, a lot of the games seem arcadey, if that makes sense.
Well, that's what Sega were known for.
Yeah, it was Sega sounding. Obviously, it did have more of you did have your RPGs, but your Fantasy Stars, but I didn't play them in 93, 94 as a 3 or 4 year-old, and obviously it was not something my dad or uncle would have bought me either. No. They would have bought me Sonic.
It's a very niche game.
They would have bought me, Sonics and stuff like that.
Comic Zones.
Yeah, things like that. I had at one point a 200 plus Mega Drive collection. It's now down to about 50. It's mainly all your sort of your Golden Axe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Hyperstone Heist, your Lion Kings, Aladdin's.
Your core games, your important games.
Your important games. There's a few that I would like. I would like Fantasy Star for, and I would like a Golden Axe. No, Streets of Rage for free, I should say, but they're quite expensive.
They are quite. So then,
and Shining Force.
We were talking about this earlier, that Megadrive collecting seems to have gone up quite massively since CX, and this is for everyone, since CX we sort of brought back into retro. The Mega Drive in particular has really gone up, because it was plastic boxes. It's always been quite a good console to collect for, because the cases it's always quite easy to get a complete in box Mega Drive game.
I have owned a Mega CD much later, not until like late teens, early 20s. I owned a Mega CD. It was okay. Sonic CD is fantastic. It's the second best Sonic game out there.
Well, I'm really weird because I actually played a Mega CD at the time, because my friend Craig and his brothers had a Mega CD. We played Sonic CDs, the only game I remember, and I remember the case.
I remember playing
We
one.
had the good version as well.
I do remember playing one, but I can't remember. And same with 32X. I remember, again, I think it's much like the CDI. One came into like the shop and stuff, and I managed to get one like. I was like, I'll just take it home with me.
What the fuck is this mushroom cloud of
death?
Yeah,
that's the same how I got Virtual Boy. It's like.
And for the record, I would still buy a 32X now.
Yeah.
If they weren't 200 quid.
But the really annoying is, I had the opportunity once. I swore it to buy Knuckles on it, and I never.
Oh yeah, Knuckles Chaotix was the big Sonic game, because they always put a Sonic game on these add-ons.
Yeah.
And no one really likes Chaotix. I think the problem with it is because it's never been re-released. I don't think there's ever been a critical hindsight view of it, because I actually think it looks quite fun, but because at the time it wasn't Sonic 4.
Yeah, it's never been.
No, it's never been given a fair shake of the stick, and obviously it's one of the only games that's never been re-released. Like they re-released Sonic Fighters for Christ's sake, but they've never done Chaotix.
I don't know why they haven't.
But so that sort of ends our Mega Drive thing. Overall, I think we both like the console.
Yes.
We were talking to our favourites at the end.
Yeah.
I think the Mega Drive in Europe was very, very important. Very, very important to certainly us, because we were both born in 1990. So that's really the console, the earliest console for us. And when we get to the 5th gen chat, I think we'll probably see a lot more of our childhood memories.
Yeah.
Because those consoles, certainly for me, and I think for you as well, sort of the most important section. But for early gaming, for us, really that started it for us. So I think the Mega Drive is a great console, and even now I would recommend buying a Mega Drive. I would not recommend buying the Mega Drive.
3.
No, the Mega Drive 3 isn't a thing over here. It's the AT games. Fuck. You know what the classic? Like got Nintendo Classics. There's a word in my head here, and I can't think what it's like. That plug and play machine and stuff. They're not very good. Even the one, because obviously when the Super Nintendo and the NES one Classic came out, they did re-release the AT games ones.
Yeah.
In like places like Asda, for example.
Yeah.
Where we may or may not work. They have had them in there, like they were in supermarkets and stuff. I would not recommend those because the emulation is not very good, and even with carts, the audio is terrible, like really bad. You can pick up a Mega Drive very cheap. I bought a Mega Drive Model 2 about 6 months ago with a mint condition controller and a SCART cable for about £20. I've only got 3 games for my Mega Drive at the moment. I've got all boxed, all in great condition, Sonic 1, Sonic 2, and Rocket Knight Vengeance, which I got very cheap.
All my Mega Drive games are boxed apart from one,
which is
Hyperstone Heist.
Oh really?
It's like my most. It's like if that was boxed.
But even to get a collection like Chris's is still relatively cheap.
Yeah.
Compared to other consoles in this generation, I still think the PC Engine is cheaper because it's imported. But if you want to collect for it, you could buy a console on an EverDrive relatively cheap. I'm not a great lover of the EverDrive, but if you just want to play games, it's good. But I will say the Mega Drive is probably the one console of all consoles you can play elsewhere. You can get the Mega Drive collection on Xbox and PS3. You can download all the games on Xbox One at this point. The Alex Kids, the Streets of Rage, all those games are available. The Golden Axe, all of the collections you can get actually in Game Pass. So the Game Pass has a good 30-40 Sega games in it. But if you want the official hardware, I would recommend a Mega Drive. I would not recommend a 32X, and I would not recommend the Mega CD unless you get one cheap.
Or buy a Multi-Mega.
They did do a lot of other versions. So we had the Multi-Mega with the CDX in North America, which is like a CD player version. Of the
Yeah,
you
still need.
You did plug it into player, but you could
the 32X still need to go into the Mac.
Yeah, and it like overheat the console. It was like people did recommend it for the Multi-Mega. I wouldn't recommend a Multi-Mega because they're really expensive.
I don't know.
Of course you have, you've owned everything, Chris. But I wouldn't recommend one for about £300-400 now. I would recommend a Model 1 if you can get one. I like the Model 2, that's the nostalgic console for me. It's worth noting as well that the power base converter, which let you play Master System games, there is a version over here you can get for the Model 2, which is actually relatively cheap. over here at the moment. I've seen a couple go recently for less than £100, which is very rare, and it's a much smaller piece of kit. It's very much like the Super Game Boy, which we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, I think Mega Drive's a pretty good console to collect for in a minute, especially if you're into that generation.
I wonder how good the Genesis 3 is.
Oh, well, it was officially licensed at the time, so I imagine it's better. But I've heard still things it's like cheap chips and stuff.
Yeah.
But
if that's better, I don't really know. There's other things like the Wonder Mega and stuff like that.
Yeah, the Wonder Mega and the JVCI and stuff. And Sega had there was like the Pioneer Laser Active had a module. There was a PC module, which I really want for the white controller.
Yeah, didn't one of like the Atari computers have a Mega Drive?
Yeah, there was the Terra Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was an Amstrad one as well, which had a lovely white controller, which I love. But anyway, so we're on to the last and possibly the most important of the 4th generation consoles, and that is the Super Nintendo, or the Super Famicom, as it's well known in Japan. The console came out late as Nintendo have done most of the time, came pretty late in the console lifetime. I think it was about 94, maybe not. That's way later. It's like 92.
Yeah, it's 92.
It's like 92, 91 in Japan. Sorry, I was 2 years old at the time.
It's because it's way after the Mega Drive.
Yeah, it was like 5 years after the Mega Drive. Came out, did very well in the United States. Absolutely tore it up in Japan. Did pretty well in Europe. It was narrowly behind the Mega Drive in Europe. I got one when I was younger. The console was pretty good. Had great launch titles. Had a Super Mario World. Had Super Mario All Stars. Had Pilot Wings. F-Zero. I know All Stars wasn't a launch title, but had F-Zero. Had a lot of sequels that are very important. Had Super Metroid. Had oh god, computer, laptop. I had Super Metroid, had A Link to the Past, had all those very important games that people love nowadays and have been re-released on everything. Had a very cool controller. For us in Europe, we obviously had the Famicom design, which I still baffles me. The Americans had a redesign, but it had the coloured controller with the was the first one with the bumpers, first controller bumpers.
Yeah.
It was the 6-button controller. It was really cool. Really good for fighting games at the time.
4 face buttons, which you still use today.
Which we still use today, even though they're not coloured.
And it had two buttons.
Which made Street Fighter amazing. Had lots of cool accessories. For me, the Super Game Boy is like the model. I still have one. It's one of my favourite accessories for any console ever. I remember playing Pokemon Red in 1999 on my Super Nintendo. I had a PS1 and a Dreamcast at the time, but there you go. But yeah, it did pretty well. I think it was one of the best-selling consoles at the time, and it was really at the time. I think as soon as the PS1 came out, it was shot on pretty quick. But yeah, it's one of those consoles that it's really hard to sort of talk about because it's so obvious. Like, it's just so every game on it was like pretty good. Like Super Mario Kart began on it. Okay, pretty cool. Super Tennis was really good. Like weird games like that. You had your Shaq Fu's, you had your Bubsies that run everything else. But that was really the sort of the front two with that and the Mega Drive. They were very similar consoles at the time, and it was like Nintendo v Sega very strong. And that was really what fostered your love for being a fanboy.
Or Sonic v Mario.
Sonic v Mario. Mario World can't be understated how great Super Mario World was at the time. Obviously, quality-wise, much better than Sonic. But this was the first time Nintendo really sort of would consider the kiddie machine until they had a Rick Mail ad campaign over here, which really sort of saved it. And Donkey Kong Country was the big thing in the UK. I remember Donkey Kong Country being very, very popular over here. Probably one of the best-selling games in the UK. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the best-selling game in the UK. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And they did a lot of bundles over here as well, didn't they, for Donkey Kong Country? Because obviously Rare's a British company, so I know those games got pushed quite a lot. But yeah, what else to say? In Japan was the Satellaview.
Yeah. Right. So here we go into like actual talk.
Story time with Chris.
We're going to console wars territory.
Everyone, get their battle boards out. Listen, bear in mind before you say anything. So this podcast does go off on a Nintendo
centric.
It's very Nintendo centric forum. Okay. So if anyone wants to call Chris Pengeli out for what he's about to say, you can go nuts. But
right. So I had a Mega Drive as a kid.
Yeah.
From 1993. That's 25 years of gaming. From 1993.
Thanks for reminding. I'm 28 tomorrow, so thanks for reminding us of that.
Yeah. So started that. Like I said, everyone used to come over and play it. Like it's the only one that in the whole cut the few streets over that had a Mega Drive, that had a console. There was a girl down the road that had a Super Nintendo, but no one ever really went around there.
Was that because she was a girl though?
I don't know.
Because again, that sounds really sexist. It's not, because obviously when you're till you're 12, women girls are terrifying. Yeah. So you're oh no, I don't want to.
But I did play Super Mario World and Super Mario Kart on her Super Nintendo. That was the only time I played a Super Nintendo as like a kid.
Really?
And at the time, going from Sonic to Super Mario, I was like, what the hell is this? It's like colourful, big colourful sprites. I'm thinking, this game is so slow and awful. Same with Mario Kart, I did not like that at all.
It's got to be said, it doesn't help as well that obviously we're playing PAL versions, which are 50 Hz, which obviously slowed Sonic down, but Sonic was quick anyway, whereas Mario was real slow.
Yeah, and I was like, what the hell? That was like my only time as like a kid. And then years later, when I bought a GameCube and stuff like that, I went sort of back to Nintendo's library, and again, like, had the opportunity to get a CDI and stuff like that. I had the opportunity to have a Super Nintendo, and like played, Burrow, Yoshi's Island, the best 2D Mario game.
Really great game.
Your Zeldas, the Donkey Kongs, Secrets and Manners, and stuff like that. And they're fantastic. And it's like this really weird thing, because now when we talk Super Nintendo, we bring up Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI and all them, which we didn't even...
That's like, so I've actually got a note in my notes here that says PAL problems. So the biggest problem we had is we didn't get any of those Square Enix games. We didn't get Earthbound as well. We didn't get Earthbound. We didn't get Mario RPG. We didn't get Chrono Trigger, which only came out over here on the DS, was the only release it's ever had physically. We didn't get Final Fantasy 4 or 6. We didn't get Final Fantasy in PAL until 7 on the PlayStation. And going back, like straight off now, do not collect for the Super Nintendo. That's my genuinely, because if you go back, they are the games that hold up the most. So the only real RPGs we had was Secret of Mana, and there was one more.
Secret of Evermore?
Secret of Evermore, maybe.
Illusion of Time, was it?
Something like that. Well, the RPGs were not strong in European regions.
And that's like the really weird, because it's like now, if you, like you say, don't collect for it, but now if you're going to go buy a Super Nintendo, you know about, or I can have this like adapter to play import games. I can play Final Fantasy VI. So it's this really weird thing. It's like I got the more nostalgia for the Mega Drive, but the SNES is the better console.
The SNES has better. I think the SNES has a core better game. So for
and the different, like, you go back. I was about to say your arcade. Sega has better arcade games. SNES has better games.
SNES has better, more modern games for sure.
Yeah.
So like
So like I know, like you can't, like Final Fantasy VI is a proper game.
Final Fantasy VI is a game that will hold up now.
Like story driven and stuff like that.
And that's what I say. If you want to play Super Nintendo games now, buy SNES Classic, which has those games.
Yeah.
It
doesn't have Chrono Trigger.
No, I've still never played Chrono Trigger because it's coming out on Steam now, so I expect.
But that's awful. That version.
I expect a PS4 version.
Yeah, but the support of the mobile version is not good.
Anyway, in regards, so my upbringing for the Super Nintendo was completely different to Chris. So I actually, as I talked about in the last thing, I started with a Master System, and we got rid of the Master System and got a Super Nintendo. So I have right in front of me, I have my Super Nintendo from 1995, I believe. It was the Super Mario All Stars and Super Mario World bundle pack, which is one cart, which I haven't. And to be honest with you, that was basically all I played on my Super Nintendo for like 2 years, because I had 6 Mario games and they were all incredible. Even 2, I like 2. And it was obviously the remade, better graphics versions of those games, which are the best cart I think on the Super Nintendo. I remember we had a video shop. If you lived in Taunton, you might remember this. It was by Prizewood School. I can't remember what it was called. I want to say it was called TJ's, but I don't remember. It got closed down about 20 years ago. But I remember when they closed that video store down, we used to rent a lot of games from them, and they sold us pretty much everything they had for about £1 a go. So that's how I got Super Street Fighter 2. Sorry, not Super Street Fighter. Street Fighter 2. I haven't got Super Street Fighter. Balls versus fucking Blazers. Basketball, Kung Fu Fury, the Smurfs, which is actually a really hard game. It's actually one of the last games on the Super Nintendo as well. It was really good. God, what else have I got? It's literally all my games are over there. FIFA Soccer 96 I had for it, which is really cool. Super Mario Kart I have for it. Super Metroid I had for it. Even I've never played that game. I own it on cart. Never played it. Don't remember playing it once, but I own it on cart. So that's my
those of you who love that game.
I played it since and I liked it, but at the time I was like, what? But my biggest memory my biggest love for the Super Nintendo is the Super Game Boy. Now, the Super Game Boy let you play Game Boy, just Game Boy games and the black cart Game Boy Color games, not the clear ones, the black cart games.
Didn't they do an updated version of that play Game Boy Color games?
Not in Europe. They did a second one.
It was like clear blue colour.
That didn't play Game Boy Color games. It had a link cable for Pokemon, but that did not come out over here, I don't believe. But yeah, I had a Super Game Boy, and certain games were in colour. There was Super Pack games, like Kirby Adventure was one of them. Was all in full colour. Donkey Kong was really good. The Game Boy Donkey Kong was really good on Super Game Boy. And that's basically how I played Pokemon Red. So when I got Pokemon Red, I had a Game Boy Color, but I didn't want to use. I had a Game Boy, sorry, because Color was out there. I didn't want to use the batteries, and my mum didn't want to buy batteries, so she bought me a Super Game Boy, and I played it on the TV. That's how I played Pokemon Red and Gold, was on with a Super Nintendo controller on the TV, and it was fantastic because those games were amazing when I was 9 years old. So those games were so good. Like that was the RPG experience I had with the Super Nintendo, which is really broken and weird. But that's really like genuinely my memory of it. And that console was over there. It was beat to shit. I played it like every day for 28 years or 25 years and bought it. So it's crazy. I mean, overall, I think you're right. I think the core games on Super Nintendo are better. I think Link to the Past, Super Metroid, Super Mario World and All Stars, Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, Earthbound are all much superior games to anything on the Mega Drive.
Yeah.
And obviously because they're
most pretty good at me Fantasy Star 4 games.
Fantasy Star, no, good because we haven't played that game. I think because I played Fantasy Star 1 and 2 on Master Systems, I think if we played 3 and 4, I think maybe we'd have that opinion. But because we haven't, we can only go on what we know.
Yeah.
The biggest problem with the Super Nintendo, which isn't really a problem, is that because of the Nintendo games, it's very hard to get. It's not hard. It's just they're very expensive games to play.
Yeah, and if you want complete in box, you got.
You're really looking at. I mean, for a cart version of A Link to the Past, you'd be lucky for 30 on its own. I think that's probably lucky. It's not as reliable. When you can download those games on the Wii U, the new 3DS, and you can get. I think it was a GBA port of that game as well, and stuff like that. Super Nintendo, Super Metroid as well. I remember buying 30p on the Wii U when it launched, and stuff like that. And you can play these games elsewhere. So I think collecting-wise, if you're a massive Nintendo collector, then yeah, okay, Super Nintendo has some merit. Personally, I would probably want to get some level of import on the go Japanese versions because the cartridges were rounded as the same as ours, because the American cartridges were sort of very bricky, and the console was ugly in America. I really didn't like the console in America. But I think if you're going to import your Final Fantasies, and because I don't think you should play them that way, but if you want to have that for collecting, I think that would be the way to go.
Yeah.
I still think of the consoles that we have in this list for collecting, which we'll do now because we'll do our top 3 for collecting. So I think for collecting, in my opinion, I think the Super Nintendo 3rd, Mega Drive 2nd, and PC Engine 1st for collecting. I think price wise and difference wise, I think that's the best way to go. I think game quality wise, the Super Nintendo is far superior to all of them.
Yeah.
I think the Mega Drive is probably easier to play games because you can get them elsewhere, but I think the PC Engine is the most interesting and cost effective, because those kind of games are games you wouldn't have played somewhere else. And there's a lot of great arcade ports and stuff that you don't need to speak Japanese. But it depends on what you want to play. What do you think?
Yeah, I sort of agree. It's really hard with all these consoles, maybe apart from the CDI.
Apart from the CDI, yeah.
It's like the other 4, like all their best games are on something else.
Yeah.
Like you're saying about the Xbox One Game Pass. Like I just got a 3 months Game Pass for £12, and it's got all these games.
Pretty much every Mega Drive game's on it.
It's got like all of these. Okay.
Comic Zones is on it as well.
Yeah, and like you could even we're going the next gen, but buy the rare replay, and you got all the best. Well,
that's when we get to 5th gen, that's going to be a very valid point. That's then 64.
That is sort of like the problem, and obviously, the problem. And even if like you're on well, I don't know if any of the Mega Drive games have been released on the PS4. They might be on PlayStation now.
Yeah, they're on PS3 and PS Vita,
and they
PSP.
might, and obviously like Steam and stuff, and then there's like mobile version, and obviously all the Nintendo games are only on Nintendo, unless they're like a Square game.
And I will say almost all of them you can attain elsewhere in Europe, apart from Chrono Trigger, which is only on DS.
Earthbound. Well, no.
You can download Earthbound on 2 consoles now.
Yeah.
It's on new 3DS and on Wii U.
Yeah, good.
But like Chrono Trigger on DS is very expensive. It's a very good version of the game, I'm told. But even now you're looking at 25, 30 quid. It's like the Pokemon games, just haven't lost value. So I think PC Engine, I definitely think is the most interesting. I will definitely follow that.
So I personally mostly go PC Engine like you, because it's the most interesting one, and then we're talking about collecting and stuff. Then I really want to say Neo Geo CD, but it has the same problem as the SNES and the Mega Drive. It's like all its games are elsewhere.
Yeah.
It's just that it's mostly the best.
It's a very interesting piece of kit. I think that's what.
Yeah, and I expect if you really care that much about arcade perfection, you mostly would go, but you mostly just buy an MVS.
Yeah.
And set that up somehow. And then obviously, then I think it's a toss of the coin between Mega Drive and Super. So I would go TurboGrafx, Neo Geo, Mega Drive and Super Nintendo.
Whichever you prefer.
Yeah. I think whichever one you grew up with, but then, like I said, I grew up with Mega Drive, but then I went back to SNES because I never played the SNES.
I think if you...
So I suppose if you grew up with SNES and never played the Mega Drive, and then maybe look at Mega Drive
I think if you want a deep dive, go for Mega Drive because of the add-ons. There's a lot more games for it. If you want to go deep, because I think the Super Nintendo in Europe, you'll probably get a 50 game collection, and probably that'd be, you probably have to put an extra lot of insurance in your house for one. But I think that's probably all you can get. Whereas like you said with the Mega Drive, you chuck in the Mega CD, I think you could probably get a good 100 games and sort of enjoy yourself. And they'd be different because obviously the Mega CD has a lot of very different games. But I think overall it was a good gen. My personal favourite console of the gen, and the reasons for, it's really hard to decide. I personally, even though I did not have one until very recently, would say the Mega Drive.
Yeah.
I played the Mega Drive at a friend's house a lot, like every week for like 3 years. Sonic I still play now. Phantasy Star 3 and 4 interest me enough that I would go and play them. Streets of Rage is one of my favourite games of all time. Comic Zone is one of my favourite games of all time. Earthworm Jim. And
I just remembered, we hadn't even talked Gunstar Heroes.
Gunstar Heroes, Rocket Knight, fucking... What's the one? Was it Rystar?
Yeah.
Yeah, those games are really good. Echo the Dolphin. For someone like me who loves 2D platformers, even though Mario is better than all of those platformers, once you have that one Mario All-Stars and World Car like I have, you might as well not buy another platformer. Donkey Kong Country is great, but it's nowhere near the quality of a Mario game. And to be honest with you, 1 and 2 were amazing, 3 isn't really worth it, and they're quite, you know what I mean? Like, give me 20 platformers that are slightly different, and I just think there's something about Sega, because Sega is a dead hardware manufacturer. You have that nostalgia, and you have that sort of lost piece of gaming. For me, like for people that are younger, people that are 18, they don't remember Sega when they were relevant, and I think that's just very interesting. I know we run a Nintendo forum with this podcast, and the Super Nintendo is glorious and wonderful, but like you said, you can just play those games elsewhere for a lot cheaper. I think for the price of the games, the amount of different hardware variations.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you go to like, if there's like some weird chart, you can go, oh, I'm looking at even from price to play the game. Do I buy it? I want a physical version, but it's a weird one. Like I said, favourite is the Mega Drive, but the best is mostly Super.
Yeah, I think so, and I think we both agree that I think the PC Engine is one of the most underrated consoles we've done in any of these chats so far. I think the Master System is very underrated, but I think the PC Engine TurboGrafx is probably the most underrated one we've talked about so far.
Yeah.
The next one, there's a lot of consoles for us to talk about.
There's tons.
So the 5th gen chat, which we'll do probably fairly soon, you're looking
There must be about 8.
I think we've got a picture in front of us. I think there's 9 consoles. I think we'll talk about 7 of them. We'll lock it in now. Next time we'll be talking about the Amiga CD32, the 3DO, the Jaguar.
Oh, I love Jaguar.
The PS1, the N64, and the Sega Saturn.
Yeah.
We will probably not talk about the PCFX, the Pippin. We'll probably mention it, and the Towns Marty, because there's no reference. I think that's all. I don't think we've missed anything there, because obviously we've talked about the Neo Geo CD now.
Yeah, I think that's about it. 5th gen.
That's a big ass. And then it's the good one in 2020 when we do that podcast for the 6th gen, which is the best gen. But anyway.
Oh, it is the best gen.
But anyway, that's the 4th gen chat. If you like what you hear, you can check out more Massive Das videos at Massive Biohaz. I'm following on Twitter at Massive Das.
That's correct.
You need to get Massive Das as your YouTube channel.
There should be Massive Das.
Is it changed it now?
Yeah.
So try Massive Das.
Yeah, you should.
Which will be in the link to this. And obviously, if you're listening to this, you're either on my channel or Chris's channel, and follow me at EOF Gizmo everywhere. Even on blog, where I do some on Blogger, sorry, where I do some written stuff. I
think there's something wrong with your blog, because I was trying to find your super lucky stuff review.
No, there's a very good reason for this. This is a live exclusive. I deleted my Xbox blog,
right,
because the Game Pass thing really wound me up. So I've gone back to my main blog and put everything in one place. So that's why you can't find my Super Lucky Star review.
Okay.
So I might, because I can get that back. I might chuck that on my thing later. But I'm currently planning a few blog ideas. There might be a gaming book club, which might be happening soon. So I'll just check up a lot for that, and obviously lots of stuff on GNamer. And obviously we've got the Switch vote, which is going up now over the next couple of days. So check that out on the forum. It's a really good forum if you've not been on there. It's definitely worth checking out. So it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
See you later.
Bye.